Do you know what it feels like to wake up at 94, alone in silence, and feel more alive than most people in their 30s? I do, and I am not special. I simply listen to life more closely than most people were ever taught to. The truth is, age means nothing when the energy within you is still burning like a morning fire. But this energy doesn't arrive by chance. It is the result of a practice, a rhythm, a commitment to honoring the body, the breath, and the stillness of morning. When I was younger, people told me that life would slow down, that aches would define my days, that loneliness would cloud my mind. But I discovered something different. I found out that the first moments of your day are not just hours to be passed. They are the foundation for how strong you stand when the storms come, and the storms always come. Every morning before the sun climbs above the mountains, I rise, not because I must, but because the silence speaks louder at that hour. I begin by listening to my breath, not thinking, not planning, just listening. This breath is the rope that pulls me back into the present, into balance, into strength. While the world sleeps in rush and noise, I anchor myself in stillness. Then I move, slowly at first, each movement with purpose. Every joint, every tendon, every breath flows into a dance of awareness. My body doesn't ask to be strong, it only asks to be used well, to be awakened like a loyal companion. This movement is not about fitness, it is about freedom. I do not train to impress. I train to remain free in my own skin, no matter what year the calendar says. Many ask me if I ever feel lonely. I do not. Because in the quiet, I find company. The morning teaches me that solitude is where the mind meets the heart, where clarity replaces confusion. When there are no voices around you, you begin to hear the ones within that truly matter. That is not loneliness. That is liberation. And above all, I have learned one simple truth. It is not the intense effort done once that changes a life. It is the small act done every day, again and again. While others chase quick fixes and fast results, I repeat what works. And it works because I do not stop. So now, when people half my age struggle with pain, stress, fatigue and disconnection, I remain rooted, aware and deeply alive. Not because I am lucky, but because I chose. Every morning to begin again with intention. You see, your body does not care how old you are, but it remembers how you treat it. Your mind does not care how busy you are, but it responds to how you start your day, and your spirit, it waits patiently for you to return to it. If I can live this way at 94, imagine what you could become if you started today. Let me take you somewhere quiet for a moment. Before the noise of traffic, before the phone starts buzzing, before the world asks you to be anyone. Imagine you're standing alone, just as the sky begins to shift from black to deep blue. The air is still, you have not yet moved, but something ancient is already moving within you. The breath. This is where everything begins. Not with a workout, not with a motivational quote, not with caffeine. It begins here, in the space between inhale and exhale. Most people rush into their day without realizing they are running on a broken rhythm. Their breath is shallow, quick, distracted. And so their thoughts are the same, scattered, restless, uncentered. But there is another way, a quieter way, a more powerful way. Before I lift a single muscle in the morning, I return to the breath. I do not control it, I follow it. I observe it, like an old friend I haven't seen in a while. The breath has a language. It speaks not with words, but with sensation. You just have to learn how to listen, and when you do, something changes. You begin to understand where your energy truly comes from. You see, most people think energy is something you chase. More food, more sleep, more supplements, more motivation. But energy, real energy, is created from alignment. When your body, your breath and your mind are in the same place, doing the same thing at the same time, this is where life flows. And the breath is what ties it all together. It is the bridge between the physical and the invisible. There was a time in my life when I too felt like I was drowning in noise. Even in a room full of people, I felt disconnected. I trained harder. I pushed further. I tried to silence the mind by exhausting the body. But no matter how fast I ran or how strong I became, something was missing. Until one morning, out of frustration, I simply stopped. I sat down, closed my eyes, and I breathed. Not for a purpose, not to achieve anything, just to be there with myself. It was like meeting myself for the first time. And from that day on, I began every morning with breath before movement. Because the breath teaches you something very important, that presence is a skill. And like all skills, it must be practiced. The breath teaches patience, it teaches observation, it teaches that slowness is not weakness, it is precision, it is control, it is power restrained, waiting for the right moment. When you breathe deeply, the body receives more oxygen, yes, but that is only part of the gift. What really changes is your state. Your heartbeat slows. Your muscles release tension. Your mind, instead of spiraling out into the future or back into the past, lands softly into the now. And in the now, everything becomes clear. This clarity becomes your compass. It tells you when to speak and when to remain silent. It tells you which thoughts to trust and which to ignore. It tells you how to move, not with desperation but with direction. All of this from the breath. There is something sacred about honoring the breath before the body. It is an act of humility, a reminder that we are not machines. We are not built only to perform. We are living systems of energy, awareness and emotion, and the breath is the thread that weaves all of it together. I have seen people transform not through complex exercises or advanced techniques, but simply by learning how to breathe, truly breathe, into the belly, into the ribs, into the back. Not short, anxious gasps, but long, patient inhales. Even longer, grounded exhales. And with every cycle, the nervous system calms, the mind steadies, the body prepares. Not in chaos, but in readiness. This readiness is different. It doesn't scream, it doesn't need to prove anything. It is quiet, rooted, confident, because it knows where it came from. It came from stillness, it came from breath. And once the breath has opened the door, then movement can begin. But now the movement is different. It is not random, it is not rushed, it is guided by awareness. It becomes a form of meditation. Each stretch, each step, each gesture becomes part of a conversation between your body and your spirit, because you have taken the time to tune in first. So many people ask how to find discipline, how to stay consistent, how to be less anxious or more present. My answer is always the same. Return to the breath, make it your anchor, make it your teacher, make it your ritual, not for the sake of discipline, but for the sake of clarity. Because when you breathe first, you are telling the world and yourself that you are not here to react. You are here to respond. You are not here to rush through life. You are here to meet it with full attention. You are not here to survive the day. You are here to embody it, fully. There is no secret in this, no hidden technique. It is as simple as stopping, noticing, feeling the breath move through you, allowing it to settle you before the world pulls at you. If you can give yourself that gift each morning, even just for a few quiet minutes, your entire life will begin to move from a different place, a deeper place, a place that doesn't age with time because it is timeless. And that is how energy is created, not by doing more, but by breathing better, by becoming still enough to hear the wisdom already living inside you. There was a time when I moved simply to become stronger. I pushed weights, trained harder, stretched further. The world teaches us to measure movement by what it looks like from the outside. Muscles, speed, endurance. But no one teaches you how to measure what it awakens on the inside. Not at first. That lesson took time. It took silence. It took failure. It took many mornings standing alone with nothing but the rhythm of my own breath and the sound of my feet brushing against the ground. Eventually, I realized something most people never stop long enough to feel. The body is not separate from the mind. They are partners in the same dance, and movement, when done with awareness, is the bridge that brings them together. People often ask why I move so slowly in the mornings, why I don't rush into the day like everyone else. They think slowness is weakness. But I have learned that true power is found in the control behind each step, the pause between one motion and the next, the calm before the strike. And it is in this space that the body begins to wake something greater than muscle. It begins to wake the mind. When I rise, I do not move because I want to look a certain way. I move because I want to feel a certain way, to become aligned, to remember who I am underneath all the noise. Every motion has a purpose. Every shift in weight, every bend in the knees, every roll of the spine, it all has meaning. Nothing is wasted. That is what separates practice from performance. Intention. When you move with intention, something miraculous happens. The mind stops racing. The thoughts begin to slow. The inner voice becomes clearer. You are no longer thinking about the movement. You become the movement. You are fully inside your body, grounded, present, awake. This is meditation in motion. It does not require sitting in silence. It requires showing up fully to each gesture, each form, each breath. This is where the discipline of the body teaches the discipline of the mind. When you move with awareness, you are training focus, you are practicing patience, you are learning how to stay instead of escape. You are teaching yourself how to remain when life becomes uncomfortable, not just in training, but in every part of life. There are days when I feel heavy, when the world presses against my chest before I even stand up. But I do not wait to feel motivated. I begin the movement anyway, slowly, deliberately. And as my arms lift, the weight in my heart does too. As my spine stretches, so does my thinking. My body reminds my mind that it is strong, that it is fluid, that it is still alive. This is the sacred cycle between form and spirit. The world today moves too fast. People are addicted to urgency. They measure value by speed, but they forget that when you move too quickly, you lose depth. You move past the lesson. You skip the feeling. You forget to ask, what is this teaching me? But when you move with attention, the body becomes a teacher. Every tight muscle, every small discomfort, every burst of energy, they all hold information. They are signals, messages, truths, but only if you are slow enough to hear them. I remember one morning when I was younger, I was practicing in the courtyard while the others were still asleep. My movements were sharp, fast, aggressive. I believed speed was strength. My teacher walked by, watched for a moment and then said only this: faster does not mean deeper. Learn to feel every inch of what you are doing. It took me years to truly understand what he meant. Now I understand that true power lives in precision, in control, in harmony. It is not how fast you can strike, it is how still you can remain before and after the strike. Can you be present in both tension and release? Can you find stillness even while moving? These are the questions that create mastery, not just in martial arts, but in life. Because how you move your body is how you move through life. Are you rushing, avoiding, forcing, or are you feeling, guiding, listening? When I move in the morning, it is not just physical, it is emotional, spiritual. Every motion is a mirror. Sometimes I see pride, sometimes frustration, sometimes peace. But whatever rises, I meet it, I face it, I let the movement carry it forward, so it doesn't stay stuck inside me. That is the beauty of using movement as meditation. Nothing stays stagnant. Energy moves, thoughts soften, emotions breathe, and in that flow, I remember who I am beyond the roles, beyond the tasks, beyond the expectations. And then, by the time the world begins to wake up, I am already aligned. I am centered. I am not dragged into the day. I step into it with grounded energy, with presence, with power, and all of it began not with noise, not with speed, but with the quiet conversation between breath and movement. If more people treated movement as a sacred ritual instead of a punishment or a chore, they would find that many of their struggles do not need to be solved. They need to be moved through, with intention, with patience, with presence. That is how the body awakens the mind, not through exhaustion, but through awareness, through grace, through stillness in motion. There is a sound that most people fear, a sound that makes them restless, uncomfortable, almost desperate to escape. It is not the sound of danger. It is not the sound of failure. It is silence, pure, untouched silence. But I know that silence is not the absence of life. It is the presence of something much deeper. Most people confuse solitude with loneliness. They imagine being alone means being forgotten, that if no one is around them, no one cares for them. They panic in the quiet because they never learned how to listen to themselves. But being alone is not a curse. It is not something to run from. It is something to return to, because in that stillness, in that uninterrupted moment where the world stops pulling on you, you meet yourself without the mask. There was a time when I didn't know this, when I believed that to be strong, you had to be surrounded by noise. That progress was made in the company of action, conversation, competition. But I was wrong. I discovered this not in the middle of a crowd, but in the early hours of the morning, when the only thing surrounding me was cold air and silence. At first it was uncomfortable. I heard everything I'd been avoiding, the regrets, the doubts, the unfinished questions I kept shoving away while I distracted myself with movement or voices. But when you sit long enough with silence, something unexpected happens. You stop resisting, and then you start hearing something else. Not the voice of fear, but the voice of truth. And that voice only whispers. It never shouts. That's why silence is required. People believe that knowing yourself comes from reading or learning or exploring the world. And yes, those things help. But the deepest knowing doesn't arrive with more information. It arrives when everything else is stripped away, when you are no longer being someone for someone else, when there's no audience, no performance, just you and your breath. In that place, I learned more about myself than in any conversation. I discovered what I truly value, what I fear, what I carry, that is not mine to carry anymore. Solitude becomes a mirror. It shows you clearly what distraction was hiding. It shows you what you've outgrown, what needs healing, what needs releasing. And most importantly, it shows you that you are enough, not because someone said so, but because you finally sat long enough in your own presence to feel it. It is strange how people spend their lives avoiding this. They fill every space with sound, music in their ears, screens in their faces, messages and updates and endless stimulation. But none of it settles the restlessness inside. It only covers it, temporarily. The moment the distraction fades, the discomfort returns. Because what the soul longs for is not more noise, it longs to be seen, and you cannot see yourself clearly when the world is screaming around you. That's why I value my mornings so deeply. That is when silence is purest, the air is undisturbed, the wind speaks softly, the ground is still, and in that atmosphere my senses return. I hear the way my feet brush the floor. I feel the way my breath rises in my chest. My awareness sharpens. I am not waiting for the day to come to me. I am arriving into it, prepared, rooted, awake. This is not isolation. Isolation is when you are cut off, when you feel unwanted, discarded, unseen. But solitude is different. Solitude is chosen. It is sacred. It is where you go to reconnect, not to disconnect from the world, but to return to it stronger, clearer, lighter. Some say, but don't you get lonely? And I say, loneliness only happens when you are not enough for yourself, when you need someone else to complete your thoughts, to distract you from your inner world. But if you spend time in honest solitude, you will realize something very freeing. Your own presence can become your home. You start to enjoy your own mind. You start to enjoy your own rhythm. You are not constantly measuring your worth by someone else's validation. You are not looking for someone to tell you who you are. You already know. And once you reach that place, you can go into the world without fear. You can enter relationships without desperation. You can face the unknown without panic. Because you are not relying on the world to fill something in you. You've already done that. In silence, in solitude, on your own. And what you gain in that space, no one can take away from you. Not age, not distance, not time. It becomes part of you. It becomes your center. It is what allows you to remain calm when others are losing themselves. It is what allows you to stay soft when the world grows harsh. Because you know the difference between emptiness and peace. You know how to return to yourself. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a portal. And once you learn how to walk through it, not run, not escape, but walk, you will discover that everything you were chasing was already within you, waiting, quietly, patiently, in the silence you once feared. There is a quiet power that most people overlook. They chase what is loud, what is intense, what is complicated and impressive. They want the workout that breaks their body in an hour. They want the wisdom that shakes their soul in a single book. They want transformation, but they want it fast. And because of this desire for speed and spectacle, they miss the truth that has been standing in front of them the entire time. Real strength is built through what you repeat. I do not move to impress, I move to align, and I do it every morning not because I always feel like it, but because I understand the law of rhythm. The body listens to repetition. The mind responds to patterns. The spirit wakes up through consistency. There is no magic in what I do. If you watched me train, you might not be amazed. My movements are simple. My practice is quiet. My breath is slow. But if you saw me practice every single day for decades in the cold, in the heat, in joy, in pain, you would see something else. You would see the miracle of discipline, the strength of simplicity, the mastery of a person who chose to return to the basics again and again until the basics became art. People come to me often and ask what technique they need, what secret form will give them power, what new path will bring them peace, and I tell them the same thing. It's not about what you do once, it's about what you do always. It's not about finding something complex, it's about mastering something simple. The same breath, the same step, the same stillness, practiced with attention, practiced with care, practiced without end. Because the real test is not whether you can do something hard for one day. The test is whether you can do something meaningful every day, even when it feels small, even when no one is watching, even when you are tired, uncertain, or uninspired. That's where most people fail. Not in ability, but in consistency. They burn bright for a moment and then vanish. They do everything for 3 days and then nothing for 3 weeks. They train when they feel motivated. They reflect only when life gets hard. They search for new answers before mastering the old ones. But nature doesn't work that way. Nature is slow, consistent, exact. The ocean does not crash in one massive wave and then disappear. It flows in and out, always. The sun does not shine once a year in fury. It rises patiently, every morning, even behind clouds. The strongest trees are not the ones that grew fastest. They are the ones that grew slowly, steadily, rooted deep into the earth, season after season. You are not different. If you want to become grounded, it will not happen by accident. If you want clarity of mind, it will not arrive suddenly. If you want strength that endures time, you must earn it daily. Not by doing more, but by doing what matters, and doing it again and again. My morning practice has not changed much over the years, but I have changed because of it. Not because it is new, but because I have entered it more deeply. Every repetition becomes a mirror. Every breath becomes a teacher. Every movement reveals something I did not see before, not because it changed, but because I have become more aware. There is beauty in this. There is freedom. When you stop chasing new and start respecting consistency, you begin to experience the subtle layers that most people miss. You realize that it's not about doing more, it's about doing one thing well, then doing it again and again, until it becomes part of you, until it becomes you. Intensity is seductive. It gives you a rush. It makes you feel powerful, briefly, but it fades. And when it fades, it leaves you empty unless you've built a foundation underneath it. That foundation is formed in the quiet, in the boring, in the repetition. And that is where most people give up, because they want fireworks, not fire. But the fire that stays lit is not made of sparks. It is made of small flames tended daily. I wake up at the same time. I breathe the same way. I stretch the same muscles. Some would call it routine, but for me, it is ritual. It is remembrance. It is training the body, yes. But more than that, it is training the spirit to stay steady, to stay calm, to stay rooted when the world becomes stormy. Because storms always come. You will have days when your body hurts, when your heart feels heavy, when your motivation disappears. But if your practice is built on discipline and not emotion, you will continue. Not because it is easy, but because it is essential. The world does not need more people who do everything for 1 week. It needs people who do the right thing every week. The small act, the quiet decision, the return to what works. That is how mountains are moved. That is how a person becomes unshakable. So when people ask how I've maintained my energy at this age, when they ask why my body still moves freely, why my mind is clear, the answer is not something new, it is something old. It is the choice to practice what matters. Not once, but always. Let us now bring all the energy of the breath, the movement, the silence and the daily practice into one final truth. The truth that your life will not be measured by how fast you ran, or how loud you were, or how much applause you collected. It will be measured by what you became in the silence. It will be measured by the depth of your presence, by what you chose to do every single day when no one was watching, when it was just you, your breath, your body and your spirit. You must understand this, life will not always give you what you want, but it will always give you what you practice. If you practice peace, you will carry it even into chaos. If you practice discipline, you will move forward even when you're tired. If you practice presence, you will find beauty in every ordinary moment. And if you practice courage, the quiet kind, not the shouting kind, then even your solitude will feel like strength. This world is addicted to speed and applause, but slow down. Breathe, see what others are missing, because the ones who truly lead are not always the loudest. They are the ones who walk quietly with unwavering purpose. They don't talk about discipline, they embody it. They don't beg for attention, they radiate energy. They don't chase after meaning, they become it. Remember this. We do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. You can dream all you want, but if your feet are not moving every morning in alignment with that dream, then it will remain just a thought. Repetition is not boring. It is the birthplace of transformation. You don't need a perfect day to begin. Begin with the imperfect one. Begin when your body aches, when your thoughts are clouded, when the silence feels too loud. Begin anyway. Because greatness isn't born on the best day. It's built on the worst ones. When you show up tired, when you move with doubt, when you keep going without applause. Those are the days that shape you. Those are the days that the fire is made from. There is no shortcut. It takes time to build a better, stronger version of yourself, as every great warrior, every great mind, and every great soul has come to realize. And so your task is not to be extreme for a moment, but to be consistent for a lifetime. Some people spend their whole life searching for motivation, but motivation is a wave. It comes, it goes. What you need is something deeper, something unshakable. That is why I say discipline is freedom, structure is peace, repetition is power. When you build your life on what is timeless, your spirit becomes unbreakable. And do not fear the silence. That silence you try to escape, that's where your answers live. The quieter you become, the more you are able to hear. In that stillness, the truth rises. You begin to know what matters, and more importantly, what does not. You stop running after validation. You stop proving. You stop performing. You start being. That's where real power comes from. Not from what you show to others, but from what you build within yourself. Understand this. A man who can sit with his own thoughts, breathe through his own storms, move with grace through difficulty, that man is unstoppable. Not because he is fearless, but because he has trained himself to move forward despite fear. That kind of strength cannot be borrowed. It cannot be bought. It must be earned. And it is earned in the repetition, in the breath, in the practice, in the silence. You want to be powerful? Then begin with the basics and repeat them. Not until you get them right, but until you can't get them wrong. That is mastery, not complexity, clarity, not intensity, consistency, not noise, focus. Never forget this. Hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life. The choices that make you stronger are rarely comfortable. Waking early, sitting in stillness, breathing with awareness, moving with purpose, practicing when you feel like quitting. These are not easy choices, but they are the ones that shape a life of meaning. Do not underestimate the power of your small daily actions. Small disciplines repeated with consistency every day lead to great achievements gained slowly over time. That is how mountains are moved. That is how change becomes reality. So I leave you with this. Start with one breath. Start with one step. Start with one small promise kept to yourself. Then repeat. Because greatness is not a lightning strike. It is a quiet rhythm. And the ones who understand this, they do not burn out. They burn steadily, brightly, unshakably. Let others chase chaos. Let others seek noise. You return to your breath, return to your body, return to the stillness, and build a life that no one can take from you. Because if a man at 94 can live alone, move freely, think clearly, and feel stronger than people half his age, then ask yourself not what is stopping you, but why you haven't started yet. And then start. Today,